إن 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 الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
Welcome to our program here on the eve of the 22nd Ramadan. Our schedule this evening will start here with a reflection on the life of Imam Ali and the circumstances after the death of the Prophet, and really remembering him. Today is the wafat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. After that, we will have, inshallah, Brother Riaz will be here to share with us his approximately 5 minute focus series that will take us to Namaz Maghrebain. We'll break for iftar. We'll have dua iftitah at 10 to 9, and then we'll continue with the presentation for tonight at 9:15, and it's to do with speech language pathology, I think. We'll look forward to hearing that, inshallah. With this, please welcome Sheikh Arif with salawat.
السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This Jumu'ah coincides with the very sad and tragic assassination of Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayh, and it is in place to talk a little bit about this blessed man and this blessed Imam. There is no doubt that there was no one more right than Imam Ali to lead the community after the demise of the blessed Prophet. That when the Prophet left us, he left us delivering a message. He gave us the basics of how to lead a good human life. He introduced God at the helm of a Muslim community. He taught us how to embrace other monotheistic faiths. He left us with teachings how to deal with other people who are not strictly monotheistic by the Abrahamic standards, but still who believe in one God nonetheless, and who are moral people. He created that space for us to live with them, collectively grow, benefit from each other's learnings. He gave us this flexibility. He gave us a moral compass, but that moral compass was based on the notion of God centricity and spiritually being inclined towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he did not live long enough to show us how to implement this sense of a righteous life within an expanding community. He left the message. After his demise came the biggest challenge as to how to understand the teachings of the Prophet, the teachings of the Quran, how to evaluate the conduct of the Prophet in a growing, expanding community. It is here that we find that there is a point of make or break. Either the people who come after the Blessed Prophet look at the newer challenges and understand very accurately how to deal with them, or they become worldly governors. And even though Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar were good people and they put many things right and they tried to do a lot of good, as stated by Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi in his letter to the people of Basra, I believe. And Khalifa Uthman was not a bad person inherently. He was a person who was unacquainted with the matters of government, and he was taken advantage of. But nonetheless, all three of them were political leaders of the community. Their understanding of a righteous community was one that grows, that prospers financially, one whose unity is kept intact by and large. Of course, that all fell apart in the Khilafah of Khalifa Uthman. But the thing is that they did not know the essence of the prophetic message. That essence was God's centricity, tending to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and rule of justice, equality, egalitarianism, all those lofty, noble ideals of the Quran and the Prophet, how to implement them. That required a leader that was endowed within the spiritual message of the Prophet and who was so righteous in his own conduct. These people, as good as they were no match for the challenges that would face the human community. Now look at the way when a leader sets a precedence, how things can go wrong after that. We, in Britain, we went to war with Iraq over 20 years ago, yes, or around there. We are still feeling the repercussions of that. It has set a precedent. We have encouraged others to invade various countries to have government changes of government. We have left those countries devastated, and we don't feel a sense of sin because a precedent was set and the rest of the leaders are following the same precedent. We went through Brexit. The whole country now is lamenting that it was a wrong decision. It has cost us around 140 billion. All the promises made by Boris Johnson, by Nigel Farage, were all lies, and people are seeing it. But nobody will talk about it, and the precedent is set. And we are set to lose so much more. By the way, on that note, as the Quran says, they are dismantling and destroying with their own hands what they created about the community in Medina. Now we are doing the same thing in Britain, but my point is not that. My point is that wrongful leadership, even though they are meaning well, if they are not accurate leadership, it can lead the community astray. Now with a newly formed, fresh, godly community, if we get an administrator administrating the state and their whole outlook is to expand the community, to make it more affluent, and is not concerned about the precepts of justice, the rights of minorities, freedom of speech, of God centricity, of being God conscious, then such leadership is not the right leadership for a community that Muhammad Rasulullah leaves behind. And we find that the first 25 years after the demise of the Prophet caused the decline of the community, spiritual and moral decline of the community. The precept of justice, social equality, rights of others were totally removed from the community, to the extent that when Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi finally comes to the seat of Khilafah, you are seeing the audacity of the community in pledging allegiance to him and then breaking allegiance. You're talking about grand people like Talha and Zubair, who are the first converts. Talha is one of the only two people who the historians conclude upon who was with Prophet Muhammad at the time of the Battle of Uhud when the rest of the Muslims fled. The other one was Imam Ali, which we all agree upon. And the other one was Talha, a grand, renowned person like Talha. Zubair, related to the Prophet, the husband of Asma, the sister of Aisha. For these people to pledge allegiance to Imam Ali and then to break their allegiance because their shares, one of the reasons was that because their shares of the public treasury were denied to them by Imam Ali because he was an egalitarian, one who will behave in terms of equality and justice. You can see how much the souls had drifted from that beautiful, neutral pedestal at which the Prophet had placed them, in which they were God-centered, they were looking towards the hereafter, they were talking about refining their souls. These people had amassed so much wealth that their minds had been removed from God altogether. These were devastating 25 years. The policies enacted by Khalifa Umar, although he might have meant well, but there was no way he had that foresight as to how they would then unfold. The Diwan system set up by Khalifa Umar initially was good, that you favor the Quraysh, and then the Arabs, and then the non-Arab Muslims. But towards the time of Imam Ali, it had corrupted the people, and we read also accounts that Umar himself, Khalifa Umar himself, was regretful at this policy. But at the time of Imam Ali, when he tried to cancel this policy, the whole of the Quraysh, well, not whole of the Quraysh, but the leaders of Quraysh went against him. Now these were the people, a lot of whom had seen the Prophet and had accompanied the Prophet. Where had their piety gone? This is what happens when we do not have righteous leadership within the folds of an Islamic community whose whole objective is to attain the pleasure of God and bring about a righteous, godly, human community on earth. When we don't have righteous leadership. So the first thing we see within the Khilafah of the Khulafa that preceded Imam Ali is that God was not a central component. God was reduced to ritual prayers, to Hajj, so on and so forth, to speech, speaking the Quran. But then this Quran was also used, and the hadith of the Prophet was used to kill Imam Hussein himself. This was how people were able to pervert the Quran of the Prophet. And it is no fault of the people because there was no guide after the Prophet. Now that was the most vulnerable era for the community, where they needed a righteous person, a person acquainted with the Quran, acquainted with the noble example of the Blessed Messenger, who in himself was God-centered and who was uncorruptible. Now I will say this much, Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar led austere lives. They were righteous in that sense, very, very righteous. They did not give positions to their children. They did not hoard wealth. They did not. This was a righteous example that they had set. But at the same time, what was missing was that strict sense of social justice, that strict sense of God consciousness, that was missing from them. When Imam Ali comes, Salamullah alayhi, look at the sermons that he gives. They are filled with a sense of accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are filled with the notion of what God is and the place that God should acquire within human life. This was exactly in keeping with the message of the Quran and the message of the Blessed Prophet. That went missing in the 25 years. And that caused such a drift away from that beautiful ideal that the Prophet had, that it was something that was not retrievable. I'm going to repeat again. In that khutbah of Shakshakiyah, Imam Ali said, now I find myself upon a camel that has become unruly. That camel is the Muslim community, that their minds have now drifted away from that righteous position where the Prophet had placed it. It has become like an unruly camel. If I were to pull hard upon the reins of the camel to slow it down, it will slit the nostrils of the camel and cause it to bleed to death. To say that the community has reached a point where you cannot bring it back to the right course. And if I were to let the reins of the camels loose, it will drag itself with its rider to its destruction. He's explaining his predicament, that look, I'm between these two. If I exert force, the force will kill them. If I let the reins loose, it will kill them. The Islam within Islamic community has all but gone. That's what he was saying. Now, this is not to say that the people were corrupt and the people were bad. No, people were good. As we mentioned yesterday, the people are good. Like today, majority of the Brexiteers are saying that it was a wrong decision. And if there are new referendums to come, the people are saying they will vote in great numbers to rejoin the European Union. You are seeing the people of America, the people of Britain, the people of Europe, by and large, vast majority of the people are against these wars that our countries are taking us to within the Middle East, in Africa, and other regions. Yet, our leaders are dragging us to these wars. What that does is it breeds discontentment within the people, and they become hopeless at the end of the day. Now, unless they awaken by some miraculous force, The status quo remains the same. Last 25 years, and I want to talk a little bit about this in the next khutbah. Last 25 years, imagine the amount of devastation we have wreaked upon the world. Imagine what we have done to the world. Our hands are dripping with blood due to what our governments are doing in our name. And the thing is, we are not left with any choice. You either elect a genocidal Sunak or an equal genocidal Keir Starmer. They will both kill the Palestinians. We know this. Did anybody have any doubt that both of them are equal when it comes to the foreign policy in supporting Israel? Nobody had any doubt, did we? I was so happy when Trump brought about the initial ceasefire, but we always knew that the situation is going to worsen, and we said this, that the situation is a temporary lull and the situation will worsen to an extent unimaginable. And I want to talk about it in a little while. What choice did people have, Biden or Trump? How can you say there is democracy? This is the state of the people. The same thing was with the initial Islamic community. The people don't have a say. The people are good, but their sentiments, their good intentions are diluted over time. They become frustrated. God is lost. It's the same situation that was there prior to the coming of the Prophet. The people were not bad. There were few warlords who exploited the situation, placed people into idolatry. A lot of the people had awoken, but they couldn't do anything about it. And gradually and slowly they were drifting away. This is the same thing we find after the demise of the Prophet, that the Khulafa might have intended well, but the community was drifting away because they were not the right people to lead a godly community. They did not understand what godliness meant. They did not understand the message of the Quran or the spiritual example and the moral example of the Blessed Prophet. For them, expand the Muslim Ummah, make it affluent, keep its unity, although that unity was an arbitrary unity based on worldly gains is not a real unity. But all the while, internally, corruption was spreading to the extent that you can imagine that Imam Ali comes to the seat of Khilafah and the wife of our Blessed Prophet, Bibi Aisha, allows herself to wage a war against Ali. How can anybody digest this? Of all the people in the world, she should have been the person most acquainted with the Prophet's method, with the Quran. Shouldn't she? She's our mother. She is our mother. We expect her to lead us righteously. In any case, she was deterred from going to battle with Imam Ali at some point. But then, of course, she was convinced otherwise. Then she regretted afterwards. But when Imam Ali told her, you do not know what you are doing. And Talha and Zubair, such noble people, grand companions, first of the Muslims, defenders of the Prophet, fought in battles. These people who had given up their discretion to Allah are now siding with Bibi Aisha after pledging allegiance to Imam Ali. You can imagine how the situation had turned. Imam Ali said to Bibi Aisha, you really don't know what you're doing. And guess what? You see, the first three Khalifas were good people, I will say. Although Khalifa Uthman was very naive, he was nepotistic, he had that weakness, and he allowed the situation to get out of control, which eventually led to his death. But what these three did not know was the consequence of what they were doing. And Imam Ali immediately said to Aisha, Bibi Aisha, you don't know the consequence of what you're doing, because there is a very pharaonic person out there who is ready to convert a divine religion into a monarchy, and that is Muawiyah. And who benefits from all of this? The first two Khalifas came, they sacrificed and they gave everything. The third one was aristocratic by nature, but good-hearted and compiled the Quran, which was the biggest favor he has done for us and for the Muslim community, no doubt. But he was open to manipulation. But guess what their actions led to? they led to a demon like Muawiyah coming to the fore. And that was the end of Islam as we know it. You're talking about media today, how media distorts facts. Muawiyah, that was Muawiyah in practice back then. You're talking about government carried out and sponsored terrorism, Muawiyah again. You're talking about assassinations, Muawiyah again. Read the history of this man. He is not a good person. Now I'm going to say the mistakes that were made by the Khulafa in their naivety. Now these are reports, of course, and you get conflicting reports and you get analysis and you get revisionists coming afterwards and revising history and so on and so forth. But from what we have right now, I think Khalifa Umar was very astute and he knew what was happening and what wasn't happening. There are two things I want to point out here. At his deathbed, when he was setting up a council, I do not see that emphasis on godliness, righteousness, justice. I don't see that in his last words. There might have been some, but not emphatic enough. The final sermon of the Prophet at Ghadir Khum. Study that sermon. It was God-centered. Put God at the helm of your lives and at the helm of the community. Of course, we don't find anything from the Khalifa Abu Bakr of the same, on the same tone, or from Khalifa Umar or Khalifa Uthman. In any case, Umar, for the concern of the community, appointed a council in which he is reported to have remarked that Ali would be the best candidate, but people would not be able to withstand his sense of justice and strict righteousness in his disciplined manner. On the other hand, Uthman, with his family ties and his great wealth, would be good for the community. But Khalifa Umar said, I'm fearful that he will allow the Bani Umayyah, he will rein in the Bani Umayyah, and then it will become not a Muslim Ummah, but maybe it might lean towards a dynasty, a kingdom. Now I'll say to Khalifa Umar, why didn't you remove Muawiyah when you knew he was bad? Why didn't you just trust in Allah and place Imam Ali after you? Now this was the concern that Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar showed initially at the demise of the Prophet, that Imam Ali has many enemies because he has killed many of the Quraysh and the Quraysh don't like him. Well, I'll say to the Khulafa, now in hindsight, by not appointing, by not using your office and your influence to stabilize Ali Islamullah alayhi, look at what happened to Islam. Look at what happened to Islam. Look at how we are suffering now. Sectarianism from Muawiyah onwards. It's plaguing us. Look at what you did. The naivety of Bibi Aisha in causing the first civil war. Muawiyah uses the opportunity that weakened the forces of Islam at that point after that battle, the year of fitna, the great fitna that Islam saw. The naivety of the Kharijis they were just like the Muslims we see today, many of them, that we will be ruled by the book of God. What does the book of God say? And then when the book of God says something, then they want to go against it. There was no righteous nurturing. What did you three do? You meant well, but look at where you brought the community. You handed it over to Muawiyah. It would have been better had the Khulafa used their office and their influence to stabilize Imam Ali. 30 years, no doubt, there would have been strife. I'm sure of that. People did not like Imam Ali. A lot of them did not like Imam Ali. There's no doubt there would have been strife. There's no doubt there would have been sects, but not to this state. We would not have had sectarianism and the plague that was unleashed by the first civil war conducted by Bibi Aisha and fully taken advantage of by Muawiyah. We would not have had this situation. Those 30 years at least would have set an example, cemented that this is what a godly community ought to look like. These are the principles of justice. This is the sense of righteousness, not wavering, not compromising. Now, I don't talk about the Muslim communities today, but which of our Muslim communities and countries are following the noble example of the Prophet or Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi? I'm going to finish on this note, and my time has gone, that I do believe that Imam Ali was no ordinary man, although I reject the extremist Shia claims that he was next to God and God-like in the way that they mention. But I equally reject the modernists who say that he was nothing more than just a righteous scholar. Study his life, you know. With full conviction, you will come to this conclusion that this man is a divine man, as divine as a human being can become. A saintly figure. And I will say this, that he is cut from the same cloth as the Prophet was, the same prophetic substance this man has in him. There is no doubt, there is no doubt. This man is something grand. You will not find his equal after the Prophet. And humanity will celebrate him till the end of its journey on this earth. I just hope there comes a time where the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi adorns the human horizons alongside the name of Prophet Muhammad, Isa, Musa, Ibrahim, alongside other great leaders like the Buddha. I hope a time comes where everybody can see that this man is cut above the rest. He is as sacred as sacredness can get. He is no less than anyone else who has preceded him in history of those divine figures. It's a great shame. It's a great shame what the Ummah has done to itself by rejecting Imam Ali. And it's a great shame that the Muslims are unable to even now objectively study him and to see what he really was. In every aspect of this man's life, you find nothing but godliness and righteousness and bravery. I'm going to leave us with that epic statement of Imam Ali, in which he has reported to have said, just read his Nahjul Balagha and his statements and don't worry about what people are saying about authenticity and inauthenticity. You will know when you read those words, those that are Ali's words, you will know these are Ali's words. He said, if I were to be given 7 heavens with all its treasures, and if I were to be asked to extract a husk of barley seed from the mouth of an ant unjustly, I would not do so. There you go. Where will you find a man like that? Can we recite the Surah Fatiha for all our marhumeen, for the people of Palestine and elsewhere who are subjected to oppression and tyranny, and for all humanity at large, our deceased. Al-Fatiha.
Sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Our time is very short, so I will make it very quickly. Sisters and brothers, our programs are published on the website quite in advance. I request everybody to please arrive on time, because when you don't arrive on time, you arrive late, you tend to disturb our program. For example, if you go to watch a show or a movie, you will not really go on time. You will go on time, but you will not go late. In fact, they will not even let you in. So we have a very short time, a very important message on a day like this. My request is please do that. If you want to converse, please, we suggest you go into the other part of the center. You can have a conversation there, no problem. Several ladies came to me that they are being disturbed by people talking to them, and I cannot do it on my own. So if you see anybody talking next door to you, tell them to shut up, please, okay? Because it's been announced, right? And I'm saying, I'm not being rude. I mean, at some point, when you don't pay attention, when you don't respect, the people who are doing this are not respectful, okay? The other thing is that if you've got young children, there's rooms available in the back, and you can actually go there. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Brother Riaz to continue his focus on the series that we're talking about. Please welcome Salawat. Let's give him our full attention.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening. All right, so if you ask people today how they feel, by the way, it's a tough act to follow after that speech, so I'm going to try and get you all back there. If you ask people how they feel these days, you will get the answer that they feel tired. And some of it is because of the Ramadan and the fast, but generally speaking, that's kind of how people feel. And this is not a statement about the politics of our country, it's just how we feel. The other thing, if you ask people, is how they feel, and if they're honest with you, they'll tell you they feel bored. So why are people tired and why are people bored? That's the thing that we're trying to explore today as part of the Focus Iftar series. If you've been following us through the series, we're covering things like the relationships that we form with technology and how sometimes those relationships end up hurting us instead of helping us. My name is Riaz Wazir. I'm the founder of Scroll by Choice. More importantly, I have hobbies, and I think many of you have hobbies too. One of my favorite hobbies is watching movies. I know it's an odd thing to announce in Ramadan from this stage, but be as it may. And so I want to invite you into the art of movie making. One of the things that people do when they make movies is something called a shot. Does anyone know what a shot is in a movie? Yes, please. Great. So the answer was it's like one scene. It's actually a little bit more refined. It's how long a camera stays on a particular subject. That's kind of what a shot looks like. Let me give you an example of what a shot might look like. Here are two shots from an action movie where the hero gets to save the world. The first shot is that of the hero dangling precariously from the edge of a cliff. That's one shot. The other shot is that of a train that's about to fall into a ravine. And a scene, for your example, is when the camera moves between these shots. So you might start with the hero here, Tom Cruise, who's hanging precariously, wondering how he's going to save the world. And you switch back to the train that's creaking, about to fall into the ravine. You come right back to Tom Cruise. Now it's a little bit of a close-up. The music is crescendoing. There's perspiration happening. Then you go back into the train because the train's about to fall, and you come right back into Tom Cruise. Okay, that's what shots are. And the reason why I tell you this, one, because it's interesting, but two, because the pace at which something moves between shots is called a shot length. In an action movie, is a shot length small or long? Small. It has to move quickly between things. How do you feel when things move quickly? You feel the adrenaline pumping, right? You feel like there's excitement. You feel like you can be sitting at the edge of your seat. In fact, movies of different genres have different shot lengths. This is a analysis of all movie genres since up until 2016. Our little Tom Cruise guy, that's about 4 seconds. That's the average shot length of a movie, of an action movie. Tom Cruise 1, 2, 3, 4, train 1, 2, 3, 4. Tom Cruise 1, 2, 3, 4, train 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of the pacing. Okay, it's about 4 seconds. Now, you guys are smart people. You probably don't watch action movies like I do. You probably watch documentaries. Documentaries have an average shot length of about 12 seconds. Think about the whale, still swimming, maybe making a turn, and the narrator gets to tell you something intelligent, and still swimming. That's about 12 seconds. Okay, that's documentaries. By the way, just to close out that topic, scary movies are the most in terms of length. They last about 16 seconds because they want to keep you trapped in there. Okay, that's the shot length. Now, I love movies, but not a lot of people even watch movies these days. No one watches Hollywood movies. No one watches Bollywood movies. What do people watch? TikTok, thank you, and Reels and Shorts or whatever it is that you do. Does anyone want to tell me what the average shot length is for a YouTube video? Shot length, so things between the cameras. Think about the things, 2 minutes. So it's less than 2 minutes. It's about 1.8 seconds. So think about it. Tom Cruise 1, 2, train 1, 2. Tom Cruise 1, 2, train 1, 2. Tom Cruise 1, 2, train 1, 2. That's the world that you're watching right now. Okay, that's the content you're taking in. Lots of people these are 90-second long things, right? They switch every 2 seconds. We started this conversation saying, why do people feel tired and why do people feel bored? Just before this presentation, I looked at two of the top most YouTube videos. By the way, the most watched YouTube videos are kid nursery rhymes. 2-year-olds are watching a bunch of content from CoComelon. If you're doing that, please stop that. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but that's the top video. That's what you can see here. That's every 2 seconds, a 2-year-old gets to see a different piece of content. Same thing for adult stuff. This is a video maker. That's the second reel that you're seeing there. They have 6 million views. Every 2 seconds, something's switching. 1, 2, switch, 1, 2, switch, 1, 2, switch. Your brain is consuming a lot of information even in the 90 seconds. That's why you're feeling tired. Why are you feeling bored though? There's so much to watch. Why are you bored? So addiction to knowledge. Let me be more precise, which is every time, the 2 seconds, every time you solve a thing, your brain's like, great job. 2 seconds, solve something, great job. Kudos, gold star. Every 2 seconds, your brain is getting flooded with something called dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter, don't have enough time to describe it, but your brain is getting flooded with all of this positive emotion to say, great job, 2 seconds, every 2 seconds. Now think about real life. When you're in the bus commuting, when you're here listening to a guy like me on stage, when you're in work on a conference call, anyone give you kudos every 2 seconds? No one gives you kudos every 2 seconds. That's boring, right? That's boring. And so 2 ideas for Ramadan before, because my time here is short. I want to be very tactical in the suggestions. First and foremost, if you use autoplay, turn it off. YouTube, Reels, wherever you are, I'm not going to tell you not to do that because you'll do it anyways. Turn off the autoplay. And the other thing, if you can, switch to long-form content. Instead of watching something 90 seconds long, try to switch towards something that's 5 minutes long. If you watch something 5 minutes long, go towards half hour. Whatever your way of managing long-form content. Ideally, move to something analog as well. And so that's where I want to conclude the conversation today. We'll chat more about clickbait and doom scrolling tomorrow.
Yes, thank you. I love you. You're always right on time. Brothers, sisters, I know that Brother Riaz doesn't bite. Okay, so you don't be too far back. You can move forward. There's a lot of room here. All right, last time I checked, he wasn't biting. Okay? We continue with the
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sister brothers, we will shortly do our Salatul Maghrib. And I just want to bring your attention. If you've got young kids who may not be able to be here for a long time, we suggest that you may want to go to the middle room. This is not the idea to drive you out, okay? There is arrangements there to pray, and some of the parents can also arrange prayers for the younger ones. But at least we want to make sure that they are okay, they're not bored, and everybody around them is okay, okay? So don't misunderstand I'm trying to drive anybody out. Okay, thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله إن الصلاة ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون. الله أكبر. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-azim wa bihamdi. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-ala wa bihamdi. Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-ala wa bihamdi. Allahu Akbar. Bihawlillahi wa quwwatihi yaqumu wa ta'ud. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. Astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-ala wa bihamdih. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bihawlillahi wa quwwatihi. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-azim wa bihamdi. Rabbi salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-ala wa bihamdi. Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi al-ala wa bihamdi. Rabbi salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya wali al-afiyah, nasaluka al-afiyah, afiyatu dunya wal akhirah. Allahu Akbar. Bismillah wa billah alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر نظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت في ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك، من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار في من تمن عليه، وأدخل الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Sisters, brothers, I just want to share a very quick thought. How many of you have been to Umrah or Hajj? Anybody? Right. All of us who go to Umrah Hajj, sometimes we find the soldiers at the road, right? So last time when I went to Umrah, I realized that they were doing a very good job. So instead of actually getting upset with them, I said, thank you for your service. And the whole attitude changed. And I realized because they're dealing with a lot of very big spectrum of people, right? And they're maintaining order. So, whenever you are in an organized place, when people are telling you to do something, they're not trying to have a score a point against you. They're trying to keep things running, comfortable for everybody. So I hope we will give everybody that same respect, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله إن الصلاة ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih.
Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته. الله أكبر. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdih. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih.
Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih.
Allahu Akbar. Bihawlillahi wa quwwatihi yaqumu wa yaq'ud. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih.
Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdi Rabbi salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya wali al-afiya, nas'aluka al-afiya, afiyatu dunya wal-akhirah.
Allahu Akbar. Bismillah wa billah alhamdulillah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم استغفر الله
الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور.
إلهي آمين.
اللهم أغني كل فقير. اللهم أشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكسو كل أريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد
وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, let us remember all those people who are in difficult situations around the world, those who are in hospitals and home recovery, those who are in conflict zones impacted by natural calamities, enduring economic hardship, imprisoned unjustly, in refugee camps. May Allah bring them relief through our collective efforts, inshallah. All together, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن 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 يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. The sisters request for offering Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumins of those who have sponsored the iftar tonight and those who have supported our Ramadan programs throughout the month, as well as friends and family members who are no longer with us. And do not forget our sister Anisa, who passed away, was buried earlier Wednesday. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah.
توجز يا رب. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر الأحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامي وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توأا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, we'll adjourn for iftar. We'll convene here at 8:50. We're right on time here, maybe 1 minute late. So we'll meet here 8:50. Thank you. Can somebody open the door here? Also, brothers and sisters, if you like to contribute to our Ramadan programs, you can use your banking app and scan the code to help us cover the expense of Ramadan, inshallah. Okay, thank you. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sisters and brothers, we will be beginning our dua program in about 9 minutes. So if you have finished your iftar, please help us clean up and let us all get situated for dua, inshallah. Please. If you have done eating, please help clean up. I think time for eating is over. It's now time for cleanup. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sister brothers, we're going to start exactly in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, we're going to start our dua iftitah, inshallah.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أعظمت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وعجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور أثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وأثرة قد عقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وهلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الظل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده الباسط بالجود يدا الذي لا تنخس خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة بي إليه عظيما وغناك عنه قديم وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وسفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أتمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وعريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مضلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني أتبت بجهلي عليك ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي وتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك. كأن لي التطول عليك فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إليك والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الأسباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الأسباح ذو الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بودا فلا يرى وقرب فشهدن له. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادل ولا شبيه يشاكل ولا ظهير يعاضد قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتوازع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأناسي ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنية قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب عامله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم صل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. وصل على سبط الرحمة وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيداي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي. وجزك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم صل على ولي أمرك القائم المعمل والعضل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتزيته له أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتضل بها النفاق وأهلها وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المن به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وعزز به ضلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به يسرنا، وبيز به وجوهنا، وفك به يسرنا، وأنجع به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا، يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطيين. اشفي به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. وصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل، وبضر تكشف، ونصر تعز، وسلطان حق تظهر، ورحمة منك تجللنا، وعافية منك تلبسنا، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فادخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فاخذمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة والهوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضري فلا تجعلنا وتطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضايا الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسي في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبية أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك، وقف السفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك، يرجون الجواز إلى ساعة رحمتك ونعمتك. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا لمن أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه، فمن للمذنب المقصر إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبه وآثامه. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاصين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربي الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجى المخلصون، ونحن عبيدك المذنبون، فارحمنا برحمتك وأعتقنا من النار بعفوك يا كريم يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنك قلت في كتابك المنزل شهر رمضان الذي ينزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، فعظمت حرمة شهر رمضان بما أنزلت فيه من القرآن، وخصصته بليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. اللهم وهذه أيام شهر رمضان قد انقضت وليالي قد تصرمت، وقد صرت يا إلهي منه إلى ما أنت أعلم به مني وأحسى لعدده من الخلق أجمعين. وأسألك بما سألك به ملائكتك المقربون وأنبياؤك المرسلون وعبادك الصالحون أن تصل على محمد وآل محمد، وأن تفك رقبتي من النار وتدخلني الجنة برحمتك، وأن تتفضل علي بعفوك وكرمك وتتقبل تقربي وتستجيب دعائي، وتمن علي بالأمن يوم الخوف من كل هول أعددته ليوم القيامة. إلهي وأعوذ بوجهك الكريم وبجلالك العظيم أن ينقضي أيام شهر رمضان ولياليه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تؤاخذني به أو خطيئة تريد أن تختصها مني لم تغفرها لي. سيدي 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 أسألك يا لا إله إلا أنت إذ لا إله إلا أنت إن كنت رضيت عني في هذا الشهر فازدد عني رضا وإن لم تكن رضيت عني فمن الآن وارضى عني يا أرحم الراحمين. يا الله يا أحد يا صمد يا من لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. يا ملين الحديد لداود عليه السلام يا كاشف الضر والكرب العظام عن أيوب عليه السلام أي مفرج هم يعقوب عليه السلام أي منفس غم يوسف عليه السلام. صل على محمد وآل محمد كما أنت أهل أن تصلي عليهم أجمعين وافعل بي ما أنت أهل وصلى الله على ولا تفعل بي ما أنا أهل. اللهم صل على بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا صالح النهار من الليل يا صالح النهار من الليل فإذا نحن مظلمون ومجري الشمس لمستقرها بتقديرك يا عزيز يا عليم يا مقدر القمر منازلها حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. يا نور كل نور ومنتهى كل رغبة وولي كل نعمة. يا الله يا رحمن يا الله يا قدوس يا أحد يا واحد يا فرد يا الله يا الله يا الله لك الأسماء الحسنى والأمثال العليا والكبرياء والأعلام. أسألك أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن تجعل اسمي في هذه ليلتي في السعداء وروحي مع الشهداء وإحساني في عليين وإساءتي مغفورة وأن تهب لي يقينا تباشر به قلبي وإيمانا يذهب الشك عني وترضيني بما قسمت لي. وآتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار الحريق. وارزقني فيما فيها ذكرك وشكرك والرغبة إليك والإنابة والتوفيق لما وفقت له محمد وآل محمد عليه وعليهم السلام. الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
This is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, Brother Rizwan, for that nice recitation of Dua Iftitha and all the other duas for Ramadan. Sister brothers, we continue our series of professional talks. Today we are very pleased to have Sister Sayyida, who is going to talk about how to make words work for you. Okay, so Sister Sayyida is a dedicated speech language pathologist, specializing in pediatric care. And she began her career in India. Now she's practicing somewhere in Tacoma, I think, right? Is it South? Yes, Tacoma. She has a bachelor's in audiology and speech language, and she is very passionate about making a difference. Please welcome her with loud salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, you already heard my introduction. My name is Sayyida Hashmani, and I have a master's in speech language pathology. I am currently working for Clover Park District. I'm here so that I can give you an overview about what exactly my field is, because a lot of people do not know in detail what exactly speech therapists do. So I'm going to give you a little overview about that. And I feel as working with children for so many years, maybe I can help you with some of the issues that parents very, often face with children currently. So some of my slides are going to talk about that. What exactly do SLPs do? So it's a very vast field. They start from the newborn to the to the geriatric population. We work with all kinds of ages, from children to adults. The field is very vast. If you're thinking of pursuing it, it is divided into pediatric, it is divided into medical SLPs, where you can work with voice, articulation, fluency disorders. Medical SLPs would work into ICUs, you can work into neonatal cares. So it is a vast field. I'm going to give you a little background of what I do currently. I'm working with the school district right now, which is Clover Park District. So I work as with an early intervention center where I help in diagnosing speech and language and developmental delays in children between the age of 0 to 3 years. The other school that I work with is an elementary school. So there I see children who have speech and language delays, articulation deficits, fluency disorders. I also work with children who have significant developmental delays who are in the life skills classrooms. So with them, our focus is majorly functional communication, swallowing, providing them with alternate mode of communications, devices for them, because communication is acceptable in any form. It might be verbal or non-verbal. So communication is it's a right that everyone deserves. So that's what we focus on for these children especially. I also deal with some of the kids who are completely homebound. So we give services to them by going home and providing those services where they would use simple mode of communication that we take for granted, just like a yes and no, but those children are not able to communicate at all. So we focus a lot on that. We focus on providing therapies to them in terms of building their language. We provide more support for their swallowing disorders, because most of these children will have motor disorders which will limit their intake of food. I deal with a lot of children who have PEG tubes in their stomach, so they cannot feed or eat anything by mouth, and these kids have severe drooling. So we help them manage most of these aspects. Now, as a speech therapist, I have worked in this field for more than 6 years, and there are certain things that we tend to ignore in our children, and we believe that early intervention is the key to success for any child. If there are certain red flags that you see in children, in your children or children around you, these are things that you should bring to the notice of your pediatrician. You should get consultations for these things. These are small things that we ignore, but these become big when they grow up, and they become significant as they are not able to deal with it at a very young age. So some of the red flags that I have mentioned is if the child has difficulty following directions, does not respond to name, does not speak age appropriately. So I have a few handouts here by the American Speech and Hearing Association. These are some speech and language milestones in children that you should be seeing as per their age. Along with that, there are also some speech sounds that the child should be able to produce by the certain amount of age that is written. So, but they are limited in number. So you can take a picture and we can share the same in the group as well. If the child does not like to play or mingle with other children, he has very specific food texture preferences. Some kids like only crunchy food, some like only mashed food. These are red flags. This is not normal. What we have to consider is these are some signs that the child is showing that he might be having difficulties. He puts everything in the mouth if the child is 2 years and above. The child drools significantly. If the child is 2 years and above, it is acceptable if the child has teething, but it is acceptable to a certain amount, or it is limited to how much drooling is acceptable. If the child is coughing consistently when he's eating, drinking, there could be some problem with his swallowing. If the child has some specific food aversions, it is okay to have some, like you feel that these are some things which are very normally observed, but these could be indicators of bigger problems that we are not able to see. My next few slides are a few recommendations that parents can do with their children. You must talk to your child as much as possible. It never gets wasted. The example that I can give you all is any announcements that we hear frequently and regularly. Our brain is wired in such a way that if you repetitively give some instructions, the person is going to listen to it. If I tell you that close your ears and sit and do not listen to what I'm saying, you're 100% going to listen to what I'm saying. That's how our brain is wired in a way that you're going to listen to those instructions. So whatever amount of time you spend with your child is never wasted. If you're going to speak to your child, the child does not respond immediately, you might see that the child is using the same amount of words or the same vocabulary that you use with the child in a different environment. So it's never wasted. Second is reading bedtime stories with the child. It was a very common practice earlier, but I think it's fading now as we have most of the parents are working and it's difficult to spend time with the children. Their timings don't match, but it is an amazing opportunity to develop your child's language skills. To involve the child in sports, physical activities. Most of the parents complain that their children have difficulty sitting in one place at a time. So you should encourage your child to join some physical activities, because if the child is requiring that physical input, you rather channelize their energy. We at a certain age are not able to contribute so much to our children because their energy levels and our energy levels do not match. So you need to tire your child down so that he's able and he's ready to follow your instructions. Create opportunities for children to mingle with other children. Right now, we are in environments where we are limited to our homes, and now there are not a lot, the culture does not allow us, or it encourages no siblings, one child. So the child has no opportunity to communicate or mingle with other children around him other than his school, and it becomes more difficult for the child to actually be social enough, especially what we see right now is due to COVID, all the kids that passed that phase have become very antisocial. They are not able to go out and socialize with other children because they're glued to their screens. Never shut the child or ignore the child if the child is taking time to talk. This point I have majorly put in terms of fluency disorders. When parents feel that the child is stuttering, there is a phase in the life of a child called as normal non-fluency, which is normal at a certain age where the child might not be able to speak with that fluency or clarity, and it peaks at about 3 years of age. But in that period, if we tell the child to hurry up or we complete the child's sentences, you are demotivating the child, and that could cause a negative impact leading to a permanent disorder. If the child is able to complete a sentence with correct words, do not interrupt the child. Instead, wait for the child to finish and then repeat the sentences back correctly. So most of the time what happens is if the child is talking something, our patience levels have gone to nearly 0 right now. If we have a child who is not able to finish or is not able to communicate correctly, is not able to use the right words, we intend to make those corrections for him, which is not the correct practice. If you stop the child and then finish the sentences for him, it's again going to demotivate him and he will not be able to adapt or be able to, independently learn how to form those sentences. And that is the reason you need to stop, you need to let the child finish talking, and then you have to model it correctly for him without indirectly tell him this is wrong. You do not have to do that. You just have to model it out correctly with a slower pace and more clearly. If the child has difficulty sitting in one place, finishing a task, most of the time what happens is we have parents, teachers, all of them complain that when we give the task to a child, the child is not able to sit in one place. Very common because the attention levels of children have also gone down. What I would recommend is every time you give your child some homework or some task to do, you should pair it up with a physical activity which can be done prior to that, so the child's brain is now calm enough to process the information that you're providing, and the child is able to focus more on the task which requires sitting. Focus on functional communication. As young children, parents, the first words that we teach the children is apple, mango, numbers, 1, 2. How many times since morning have you used the word apple? Not once. I have not used it once. How many times have we said 1 or 2, these numbers? How many times have we used the words of colors? We've never used that, but what are we teaching them? Or alphabets. These are the first words that we teach the children. That should not be the goal. The first words that the child should be using or the child should know is to ask for help. The child should be able to describe pain. The child should be able to tell you if the child is hurt. These are the words which should be if the child is hungry or he needs water. These are the first things that the child should be able to indicate. This is what we call functional communication. Especially with children, this you learn the hard way when you have difficulties with children. We work in the field where we see children who are not able to communicate even after a certain age. For them, our focus is only to develop functional communication. But as young toddlers and as young kids, these should be the first words that you should be teaching the child. The other activities that you would see in therapies would include all of this, but the goal of that activity is never that. So when I take an activity with the child where I would use colors, the child is using it as a secondary learning, but my primary would be probably working on his auditory comprehension or his listening and understanding skills. And over there, I'm introducing such concepts, but my focus is always going to be functional communication. Those are the first stages of how we should be building language. Speak to your child with toys or objects, keeping it at the level of your mouth. So what happens is now we know that these are some techniques that we use in therapy that I'm sharing with you all, which could be helpful. Most of the time you will see that we will talk to the child that this is a phone. But what happens is that my child does not have the attention enough to be able to focus that this is a phone. And how am I producing it or how am I saying it? So as a therapist, I would keep this at the level of my mouth and say, this is a phone. So when the child is focusing here, in his vision, he can also see how am I pronouncing it. How am I producing the word? So that helps the child to learn these words much more faster. Talk in slower and shorter utterances for better comprehension, especially for young children. We are always in a hurry to talk, but our children don't follow the same pace, right? We live in a busy world, but they don't. So we have to match the pace of the child, especially when you're talking to young children. You need to be slow. You need to break up your sentences to a level that the child understands with patience. Be the model of how you want your child to communicate and avoid baby talk completely. We start off with communicating in a baby talk with a child where the words that we use are not actual words. It's very cute till a certain age. Trust me, it's not cute when it comes to an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. It is not. So these things should be inculcated as the children are growing. Use normal vocabulary with your child so that the child is developing that. You are the first models and the teachers of your child. So he's going to learn whatever you say or how you speak. So if you want the child to have a good rate of speech, the child to be talking faster, clearer, these are things that you need to change in yourself first. Build joint attention by talking about what the child is already attending to rather than shifting focus on an item of your choice. Very commonly what we see is when we tell the parents that we are going to be doing some attention activities with the child, please sit with your child and do some activity or talk about the object. What happens is the parent is going to pick the item of their choice and talk to them. If the child is not interested, if you are not interested, you are not going to listen to me, right? And you're an adult. Imagine a child who's not understanding why all of this is happening. So if the child is playing with the toy, if he's playing with the ball, and you want to talk about a fire truck, he's not going to listen to you. So if he's looking at the ball, he's attending to the ball, it's better that you talk about the ball to him because he's already focusing his attention. Already at a young age, there are levels of attention that children develop as they grow. When they are small and young, their attention is limited. They can attend to only one activity at a time. When I tell him that you need to move your attention from this activity to another activity and look at this toy, you might have lost the child's attention in that span. So it's better to use the opportunity that you get, especially opportunities around you, what is happening every day in your daily life. Use those opportunities to communicate. In the focus series, we already saw a part of this, which is screen time for kids. This is based on a research by American Academy of Pediatrics of what is the ideal screen time of children. If you see 18 months or younger, there is no screen time. It is not acceptable at all because we see a lot of developmental delays in social skills, in pragmatic skills, all of this, and one of the major reasons is screen time. 18 months to 2 years, limited screen time and avoid using solo. So you need to control what you watch. The example that was given in the focus series was Cocomelon, which I was going to address today. It is apps. If you see that, most of the parents which will come to me will complain that, how can you tell me no screen time? Whatever my child talks is because of the screen. So is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing because your child has learned everything from the screen, which means number one, your child has learned nothing from you. If the child has learned nothing from you, what is the reason behind it? If we see these screens, just sit and watch that Cocomelon one nursery rhyme. And I will tell you, there is so much of light, there is so much of music, there is so much of movement and dancing in those nursery rhymes that what happens is the children get glued to them like they are hypnotized. Okay? Once, after a certain point, the child is used to that pace of things and that amount of stimulation that those screens are providing. After that, if you are going to teach the child that this is a ball, the child is not going to like it. Can we dance and sing and have lights at that pace? And can we move at that pace in our normal lives? The child is not going to follow things at school because he's used to having that kind and amount of stimulation provided. So if we can't provide that, we need to cut that out from their lives because in normal life, we do not do all of that. They should be able to concentrate and learn with our pace and with how normally you would have things taught to them. 2 to 5 years, limit screen time to an hour a day. Again, when we limit screen time, it is also limited to what you show them. The shows or the cartoons or the things that you watch are really important to cater to what exactly are we targeting. 6 years or older, place consistent limits on their time spent and types of media. So I work at the Early Intervention Center where there are preschool classrooms. I have different classrooms. All teachers run their classrooms and in different ways. I have one classroom where the teacher really believes that screen is helping the child to learn. And it is my practical experience. I see it every day. One of the teachers feels that the children are going to pick up from the screen. She plays nursery rhymes and it is a part of their daily schedule. Every day, 20 to 25 minutes, they will have a set of rhymes and they will teach them numbers, colors, whatever through that. I give some sessions in that class. That class has about 10 kids. None of them can talk. All non-talkers. Most they can talk is single words. That's it. We are working on labeling items. We are working on expanding their vocabulary. The other hand, I go to another class where the teacher has a very strict rule. She believes no screen time. I go to the class to ask the teacher something, and a 3-year-old comes to me and says, "Excuse me, can you help me with this?" It is the same age group that we are seeing. And the children are making sentences beautifully. Because the teacher has a very strict rule, no screen time. She has 0 screen time in her class. Everything that she wants to do, she would play it in an audio. If she wants to give like cleanup instructions or something, she would have nothing displayed on her screen. Her screen is plain and white. The children are reading in circles. Every day she has, like, instead of those 20 minutes which are happening in the other class where they are focusing on screens, this teacher reads to the children that she's catering to. And these kids have beautiful language skills. There are some kids who will have like clarity issues for which I had to go and see her. But her class, there is a stark difference between what we see daily. So you should know what we are choosing for our children. And screen time, even though it is acceptable, you need to really run through what shows your child is watching, how stimulated they are after this, and how it is going to help them. They are having difficulties to sleep. They are having all of these deficits. They are having attention deficits, and screen is one of the biggest reasons. I wanted to put in a slide which had milestones for children, which I think we can share. So we have a handout here, but it is few in numbers. So if you have small children, this is like the speech and language milestones that is normal and age appropriate. Compare it with this, do these recommendations, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now. Yes.
Thank you very much, sister, for your nice, very informative presentation. It's just what we needed. The question I have for you is about the teacher. The teacher who believes screen time is everything. Do parents have a say whether,
No.
What is the school district policy?
The school district policies are the teachers run their classrooms like they want to. They have a schedule. You need to follow a schedule and you need to show progress. That's it. How you're teaching them, what are your methods are not questions.
But, these studies that say this damaging and everything, I mean, are they not having an effect?
No. That's very unfortunate, but no.
Any other questions here? Brother Kadir? Just speak to the microphone because the people at home cannot hear it, okay? So if you can hear your voice, then people at home can hear it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Thank
salam.
you so much. I have a question. So you're saying that if they know for the small children, can they have like a radio on? Is that helps? Just the voice, or the
Yes.
parents are talking more because today's parents are more individually looking at their screen themselves on their
Correct.
phones, right?
That's right.
So the question is, if they talk to each other like old days, is that better for the speech or for the children or not?
Yes, it is it's the best way of teaching your child, because the major way that a child, or majorly what we do in therapy sessions as well, is modeling. So if you're talking to each other, the child is learning how you're communicating with the other person, how you're forming sentences. So that is the best way to model to your child. And if you're including your child in a conversation which you're having with your partner or whoever is having the conversation at home, it's really going to help him build more language.
Assalamu alaikum. This is a question from Audrey, who's watching through the video. She had a question which said, for children past the toddler age, more like preteens, who are struggling with speech due to early neglect or lack of stimulation, how do you begin to reverse that and support improvement? And what kind of strategies or therapy approaches tend to work best in those cases? And then does this build, like, if this happens, like, does this build like ADHD in kids, or like, you know, this hypertension, or is that related in any way?
Okay, so every child is different. They might develop at a different pace. You cannot predict that the child might have ADHD, but if you catch these things at an early age and you try to work with these children at an early age, they tend to show excellent results. Like, we would start by asking how things are working at home. If the parents are communicating, what is the language that they're using at home? What is the language they are having in school? Is it like different? Are those like barriers? If there are any barriers in communication, we would try to minimize those things. If the child is not getting more exposure to other children, we would encourage that. We would have one-to-one sessions with the child. We would do some sessions in classroom where we would include them with other children, where other children are the best models for the child. So whenever you teach something to the child, it's difficult for the child to understand, but if the child, another child of the same age, is showing those same behaviors or doing the same things, it's much more easier for the child to understand. So we would have like more group sessions with them, and we would start, again, like I told you, functional vocabulary. We would start with how developmentally, what are the milestones that the child should be achieving, what all he has not, and we will start from the basic of the milestone. So if the child has not achieved his first word, our milestone or our therapy would be focusing on his first word, to achieve his first word. And then from there to phrases, to all of those things that he should be knowing, identification of common objects.
One last question, okay? Because of time. Any other question from the ladies' side here?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I just wanted to ask, sometimes parents are busy and, you said an hour of screen time is acceptable. What would be something you recommend? Like, do you have any things specific that the kids should watch?
They should watch, on the screen?
If they're having screen time, what should they watch? But rather than Cocomelon, what is the alternative?
So, firstly, I would not recommend screen time, but I would recommend that you encourage the child to have games, painting, coloring, but I understand it is difficult. So there are certain shows which are lower paced, who are slower, and those shows do not have so much of lights or music. One of the shows that I know is Miss Rachel, which I have seen. She teaches the child vocabulary. There is no sound, there is no music. That is one of the shows. There is another show known as Dr. Binocs, very informative show for children. But I would still recommend that you watch these shows along with your child. But this is the last alternative that I would recommend. I would recommend encouraging your child to be engaged in some other activity. If you're not able to give him, maybe encourage him to play with toys or do some painting or some building toys. Those will help him to kill the time and to develop some skills as well.
Thank you very much, Sister, for Sayeda, for coming tonight from Tacoma. I think it's great to know that we have a resource in the community who can help us on these things, because there's a lot. I have many questions, but I think we're out of time. But I'll speak to you separately. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Microphone, just take a minute. If you have any questions, further questions, you can interact with her one-on-one. But I'm just being respectful for our schedule, okay? Our schedule says that we need to go with the seed collective activities now. So I'm going to turn over to Brother Amjad, okay?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Let's give a salawat to our sisters, Sayyida here that came and gave us a speech. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yeah, so we're going to be starting with Sister Hawra. She's going to be doing the continuation of the book club in the other space, the other room back over there. So if anyone wants to join us and kind of get along with the conversations and discussion, you guys can join us over there. I hope that everybody's enjoying the speeches and the guests that are coming with us. And if there's anybody here that's also interested in giving a speech or being involved, it'd be great to have you guys come and join us as well. Or if you guys want to give a presentation yourselves, feel free to reach out to me or Sister Audrey. We have two additional speakers that are going to be coming next week. One of them is going to be on Friday, who's going to be doing some Sharia compliant investment conversation. So it's going to be the CEO of that company, as well as a presentation with one of members of that program. So it's going to be a two-person presentation. It's going to be a little bit unique. So we've been having the guest speakers come here and be up on stage, but this one, these folks are actually out of Florida, and they're taking their time out of the day to actually do a presentation for us over Teams. So you guys will have a live session with them on Teams, and we'll be able to ask questions in a very similar way. So that'll be on Friday. And then on Saturday, to pretty much end off our professional speaker series, we have Brother Denizon that's over here in the corner. He's going to be giving a talk on his experience, like growing up through in his Islamic background and how he found his way back to Islam and that growth. So I think it's a perfect segue and ending to our professional speaker series and kind of approach to young speakers and students that are going to be talking in the community as well. So inshallah, you guys we'll see you guys next week joining us on that. If anybody has questions, let me know. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brother Amjad. This brings to a close to our formal program. Now the informal session starts. Thank you all for coming. Tomorrow is the evening of the Laylatul Qadr. Our program will start at 6 o'clock in the evening and will probably go on past midnight, I would say. Okay, so thank you all for coming and enjoy. And please pass on the information because I think many parents in the community can benefit from what was just shared. Pass on this news to other people. Those who are not here, they can watch this presentation on YouTube. Okay, our programs are recorded, so they can watch this on YouTube. I think there are many parents who could benefit from this thing. Brother Gadi, especially from the Sunday school, you may want to pass this message on in the assembly tomorrow or Sunday. Thank you. Sallu ala Nabi.
إن